夠時間咯，咁我哋就開始啦，好嗎？
I think it's the appointed time. Let's call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, members. It is now 2:30, and we have a quorum for the panel on Home Affairs. I now call the meeting to order. Item 1 on the agenda, minutes of the meeting held on the 9th of January 2015. The minutes of that meeting have been sent to members. The clerk has not received any proposed amendments. I'd like to invite members to confirm that set of minutes, please. No objection. Thank you. Minutes confirmed. Since the last meeting, some information papers have been received. The clerk actually issued 7 information papers to members, and the details are in the agenda issued on the 20th of March 2015. And this morning, the clerk also forwarded a submission on the management of the Chinese orchestra and the governance of the Chinese orchestra from 3 citizens. Mr. Kenneth Chan, well, actually, these are not exactly citizens. They are people who have been dismissed recently by the Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra. So it's not citizens who are worried about the Chinese orchestra, but 3 people who were dismissed and who feel aggrieved. And they are of the view that the submissions from the Chinese orchestra to members are misleading because of false representation. And in fact, they would like to ask for an audience at the panel so they can have a dialogue with the Chinese orchestra together with the former director. This is a very specific issue, Mr. Chairman. And since the Chinese orchestra is submitted or supported by public funds, I don't think we can avoid attending to this very solemn issue. 3 senior musicians were dismissed without notice. I hope we will look closely at the letter, and I hope members will support having a meeting in due course on the matter. Deputy Chairman. Chairman, the Chinese orchestra is a public body. I think these are not individual or isolated cases, and I mean staff matters within an organization. If we start this as a precedent, I'm afraid it's difficult for us to handle similar situations in the future. This is a complaint from a certain organization. Maybe we can refer it to the complaints division. We can't rely on one sheet of paper and decide who is right or wrong. If we take it to the panel at this juncture, there may be other organizations who may be in the same situation, and we will be made very busy because we have a lot on the plate already. Mr. Wu Chi-wai? Thank you, Chairman. When we had the Urban Council, we had this experience. Musicians and the management have different views. But this time around, a few senior musicians were dismissed without notice. They are very experienced musicians who have been with the Chinese orchestra for 20 to 30 years. I knew that they were there when we had the Urban Council and when I was a councillor. As the HA Bureau, did it listen closely to the views of both parties, or did the Bureau only receive a report from the Management Board? Many people have questioned that. As to whether we should have a hearing or a meeting on this matter here at the panel, that's a separate matter, but at least we should require the HA Bureau to look into the matter. Maybe the Bureau should allow both parties, including the management and the musicians, to have a dialogue on the governance of the Chinese orchestra so as to find the truth. We must remember that relevant matters have been mentioned by a report from the Ombudsman. Even if, as the Deputy Chairman said, we should not intervene directly into the matter, at least the HA Bureau should not only listen to the response from the board and think that the matter can come to a close. At least there should be a platform for a tripartite dialogue, because this has to do with the governance of the Chinese Orchestra, and the HA Bureau is duty-bound to look into it. On this matter of the Chinese Orchestra, actually Mr. Kenneth Chan wrote to the panel last time, and the HA Bureau has already responded. I hope you will look at those responses. Dr. Helena Wong, I have also written in. Is it that the response to Mr. Kenneth Chan's letter is also taken to have responded to my letter? Because I wrote on the 17th of February to you, Chairman, and I asked that you look into the funding for and the governance of performance arts groups. I haven't received any reply yet. It has been a month or so. So, Chairman, how do you propose to deal with the letter and the relevant matters? Ms. Claudia Mo, I thought you should answer her first. I will give a consolidated response. But in fact, we are not talking about holding a public hearing or a full hearing or setting up a select committee as such. We'd just like the HA Bureau to put in an open explanation. And we'd like to have a dialogue with the relevant musicians. I'm not talking about having arguments between the Bureau and the musicians, but we have to clarify the matter to the layman or the public. We are seeing an orchestra where the management can dismiss any musicians who are not obedient. Now, this is not reasonable. I hope we can deal with this in one of our meetings. Mr. Albert or Mr. Stephen Ho. Chairman, sometimes the public may complain to the LegCo about things they think are unfair. But should the HA panel do things on the basis of individual events or matters? In fact, there are other platforms where this can be handled, like our complaints division. If we intervene at this level of panels, would we be exerting pressure on certain parties and so resulting in another kind of unfairness? Mr. Tenkapiu, if it is about employment, if it is about dismissal, whether it is legal or reasonable, the Legislative Council, in fact, as an open platform, is not conducive to effective mediation and negotiation. These three musicians are very much known in Hong Kong. If they need help, maybe we can help them do some negotiation, or we can go to the labor tribunal. But I would agree that if there is already some discussion in society, then, as Mr. Wu Chi-wai said, we should look at this matter from the angle of governance. And the HA Bureau should at least write a policy paper for our discussion. And of course, it should particularly comment on the comments and allegations regarding the Chinese orchestra, whether the HA Bureau has asked for improvements to be done. I think on a policy level, we should ask for a response from the HA Bureau, but I think if it is just about employment, it is not for the LegCo to act as a platform. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, are we on the same point? Are you talking about guest houses? No, we are not there yet. Mr. To, on the same point? Yes, please. Chairman, we should do some follow-up on the policy level. In 2010, the Audit Commission audited the Chinese orchestra and a report was written. I believe the administration should let us know how arts groups are regulated on the policy level also including the financial arrangements, appointment policies, and recruitment of musicians, etc. I think all this should be detailed to us. Certainly, on the issue of the Audit Commission, we should also ask the HA Bureau how it regulates the public funded orchestras and arts groups. Okay, I think members have all stated their views. Our panel should look at the policies and how arts groups are subsidized. I have also seen the letter written by Dr. Helena Wong, and now I'd like to ask the clerk to relate to the Bureau that we would like them to give us a response paper on the policy on public-funded arts groups, and then we can follow up from there. Is that okay? Dr. Wong, my letter was written in mid-February, and only now you ask the SHA to respond. We are almost at the end of March. Did you put my letter into the drawer? And I have to wait 2 months for you to ask the HA to respond, and then I have to wait 2 months for the response? It will take us to the next year. This is not the way to be a chairman. You should instruct the SHA to respond to our letters quickly, and if we don't think the response is satisfactory, then we can put it on the agenda. How come you're only asking the SHA for a response now? As I said, Mr. Kenneth Chan already wrote, and the administration also responded. And Dr. Helena Wong, your letter says that you propose that this panel should list on the agenda the matter of funding arts groups, and whether this is included in our agenda, then I have heard you, and this is my recommendation. If you don't agree, you can speak up, but you can't say we have not processed the letter. No, what you said was you would ask the SHA to respond to our letters, and then we can decide whether there is a need to put this on the agenda. If you think the SHA has already responded to our letters, then my proposal is that we ask the SHA to comment on the governance and staffing of performing arts groups. We should ask the SHA to come to the panel for a discussion. This is my formal proposal. I have done so in written form, and I'm now making an oral request again. Mr. Kenneth Chan. Chairman, I agree. We have been writing letters. If I were happy with the response, I would not be doing the follow-up. If the response was satisfactory, the 3 musicians would not have been writing to ask, request, or beg for a discussion. I think we have to discuss it, and we can look at the policy level, but then the policy would also lead us to specific cases, or else why should there be a discussion? And also, if you think this is not the platform for a dialogue, then you can find a time and arrange for the different parties to have a discussion. That would be quite all right. Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. First, let us clarify what we want to discuss. We have received a letter from the 3 dismissed staff members of the Hong Kong Chinese Orchestra. But Ms. Helena Wong is actually talking about the funding for and the governance of performing arts groups. These are 2 separate matters. Therefore, I don't know whether members have the intention to understand or look into the situation attending the dismissal of the 3 musicians, or are we talking about the so-called use of public funds by public arts groups? I think there are 2 matters. Let us clarify the matter. Well, in fact, I had already indicated that we would follow our usual direction of looking at policies at the panel. So I will propose, first of all, to ask the SHA to give us information. But Ms. Helena Wang said she would not agree.
Now, it's not a problem. We can put it on the agenda, and we can arrange for discussion at a later date. When it's talking about governance, the Bureau will respond, and for the individual groups, it will not be dealt with. Now, the HAB has a service agreement for these major public funding items, and in the agreement there is a relevant term, and this is on policy level. Now, the Audit Commission audited the Chinese orchestra and found that a lot of this of the terms are qualitative rather than quantitative. So there's some argument about who gets more and who gets less. So we can ask the HAB to come and tell us, when they sign service agreements with art groups, how do they monitor the procedures so that the levels are raised. Now, personnel matters are involved. Now, cases are only for reference, but we need to follow up on policy. Now, can the Secretariat forward the views of Ms. Ho to the HAB? So our proposal is for Ms. Helena's proposed item to be placed on our agenda. So if that's okay, let's continue. So we will do our best. Now, we know there are different items. Now we come to the meeting date for the next meeting, and the Secretariat has given us the list of outstanding items for discussion, so is it about the items for discussion next time? My letter is about my letter and government's response. It's of the same scope as what's been discussed. The government has already responded. Now, you must indeed look closely at it, because the government's response is quite shocking. It's arrogant and it's irresponsible. It said that the item was discussed 2 years ago and it cannot be discussed. Now, this is not acceptable. It's just over a week ago. Now, there's a whole page advertisement querying the government's rights to launch APIs. It's not suitable for TV and so on. Now, it's said to be under GIS, but who has the decision making over GIS? Now, we have to talk about law. We have also talked about ethics, political ethics. This must be discussed in the Home Affairs panel. And IT panel, they say that the Communications Bureau is not the place to deal with this. Now, the administration's letter of response mentioned the broadcasting ordinance. So last time it was dealt with in the IT panel, so maybe we could refer this to IT panel. Now, the IT panel now is their view is that it's nothing to do with the IT panel, but to do with Home Affairs. Now, the government says it's been discussed, so there's no need to be discussed further. Well, if anything discussed is not to be further discussed, then there wouldn't ever be any legislative amendments. Now, it's very detailed, said in detail that at IT panel that is going to be discussed in HA panel. Oh, perhaps let the Secretariat gain an understanding with IT panel to see who should follow up on this matter. Now, we need to come to the next item of agenda. The next meeting is on the 10th of April at 8:30 p.m. in chamber in room 1. The proposed items of discussion are firstly education and career development support for elite athletes, and secondly signature projects, Wong Tai Sin District Council, Shamshipo District Council, and Shinwan and Sha Tin District Councils. Now, since these involve public projects and finance matters, all LegCo members will be invited to attend. Now, any comments on these two items of agenda? If there's no objection, the Secretariat will serve notice to the Education Bureau, because this involves the support of elite athletes, and this is also touching on education. So much for this item of agenda, and we come to the next part, the fourth item. Outcome of the public consultation on the review of Hotel and Guesthouse Accommodation Ordinance. We'll invite the administration in. Now, all the LegCo members are invited. The Secretariat has also drawn up the latest updated background brief. The document number is CB2-1045/14-15 /04. Now, if the Secretary is ready, we will ask him to brief us on the document, and then I can ask members to raise questions. Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, in recent years, the public is concerned about two matters. Firstly, the guest houses cause nuisance to other occupants of the building, and unlicensed guest houses cause a safety risk. Now, early last July, the HAD issued a consultation document in order to solve these matters, to enforce law against the unlicensed guest houses. During the consultation period, we listened to the views of the district councils, the hotels and guest houses sector, and residence groups, and so on. The HAD also received about 1,100 comments, about 60% from the members of the public, 35% from the trade. The HAD has analyzed the data and collated the data, and overall our proposals have received the support of most members, a majority of the public's support, and also received support across the parties, political parties. Now, at the same time, some members of the trade are worried that this might affect the business and costs. Now, the guest house industry do make a contribution to the Hong Kong economy. We need to strike a balance between the business and the welfare of the public. Now, taking into account all the views on all sides, the government decides to amend the legislation, and later in the year it will submit the Hotel and Guest House Accommodation Ordinance Amendment Bill. And in licensing, apart from considering fire safety, etc., it will consider the provisions of the DMC and residents' views. In law enforcement, there will be no new provisions for circumstantial evidence to be relied upon for prosecution. And the law enforcement officers can apply for search warrant to get the evidence, and there will be increase in the penalties for unlicensed guest houses and so on. We understand the concern of the trade. We will let them have ample time to adapt to the new measures and to make suitable arrangements. We propose that before the commencement of the bill, new legislation, the existing license holders can renew license for 12 months once, but on the old basis. In other words, they need only comply after 1 year. After the licensing authority will also write to the licensees to make preparations. If they need to relocate, the applications will be dealt with priority. Now, as for requests, the requirements for a 24-hour manned counter, third-party risk insurance, and the classification of licenses into hotels, guest houses, etc. The licensing authority will add these new categories, and that will take place in the third quarter of this year. There will be a 12 months grace period. Overall, improving on the licensing system and striking a blow at unlicensed guest houses is an urgent task. We urge the members and the trade to support the proposals and the transitional arrangements so that we can implement them as soon as possible. 3 members have indicated a wish to speak, 4 or 5, including me. 4 minutes each, I propose. Mr. Sin Chung Kai. Now, if the DMC says that the building cannot be used for guest houses, and if the loophole is being plugged now, I think this will be in accordance with the wishes of the residents. Now, my question is on the following matter. Now, this morning we had a meeting on innovation in technology. Now, in the past few years, I'm sure the Secretary is aware of the coming into popularity of sharing economy. In many jurisdictions, some residents let their homes to visitors for short terms during their visits. And I understand that places like London and Singapore are amending the legislation to accommodate such a trend. Now, the government says it wants to support innovation and technology. Now, this may not be within your scope, Mr. Secretary, but if we want to introduce, to support innovation, it should deserve the support of different bureaus. Now, Mr. Secretary, have you considered this on the need to amend existing legislation so as to establish a system that can facilitate the sharing economy? The Secretary, Madam Chair, I thank Mr. Sin for his proposal that we should consider the issue. Now, the existing legislation and our proposed amendments, it's true, do not cover this matter. Now, some arrangements for short stay involving sharing economy, as I have read, involves exchanges. So Hong Kong people can enjoy the living in homes of people abroad and vice versa. And maybe there is no exchange of money involved. So it's not sure. I'm not sure whether this requires government involvement and regulation. Now, but if there is money transaction involving payment for short-term stay, and the stay is not more than continuous 28 days, I'm afraid we need to put it under legislation for regulation. Now, if it's sharing economy, if it involves accommodation, we should be clear what we're talking about. Mr. Secretary. Earlier, years ago, I did write to you on this. Now we encourage innovation, technology. We need to sort matters out. Now, the proposed legislation is very simple. Whatever is not allowed by the DMC, they will not receive a license from the authority. But some DMCs didn't specifically state whether guest houses are allowed. In that case, the applicants will submit applications. Now, I'm not talking about operating a guest house, but someone say doesn't live in his own home and he lets his home be used by visitors for money.
If the DMC still doesn't allow it, you may not allow it. But then the entire licensing regime has not given consideration to this part. I was mentioning London and Singapore who are already doing this. Is it because you have received many complaints, so you want to plug that loophole, but you are not going to look into this part? This is about legislation already. So when are you going to look at this part as well, and how sharing economy will be affected? A very brief response, please. Thank you, Chairman. We have looked into that, but we have found that the situation is unique in Hong Kong. If we allow that to be done, there may be nuisance caused to neighbors, and that would go against the entire purpose of this review exercise, because in this exercise we like to minimize the nuisance caused by guest house operators. You may be talking about a small scale, yet there will still be nuisance caused, and we have looked at overseas examples. The so-called sharing economy mode is also problematic. There have been vice cases or drug cases and also burglary. And we don't know whether we should promote it in Hong Kong. I will have to follow up. Yes, please. Stay in the queue. Mr. Kwok Wai Kang. Thank you, Chairman. After collating the views, you have included the way forward. I believe you are talking about the way forward for legislation. I think it's good to make legislation so you rectify the present situation. In the past, guest houses would have the license, but then they breach the DMC. And that has caused a lot of arguments that are unnecessary. And by amending the legislation, this will be dealt with. And we estimate that there are 280 such guest houses. And as the SHA said, there will be a 1-year transitional period. My question is, have you assessed the 220 guest houses? If they cannot operate after 1 year, what will be the impact on tourism? I don't know whether Mr. Yu Si-wing can answer the question. Since they have the license but breach the DMC, and since before getting a license, they would have to cope with a lot of different requirements, and so these people actually are devoted in operating guest houses. Now, can the Bureau provide a transitional period and then also assist them in finding another location for continuing the operation? And secondly, how can we define innocent parties? You mentioned landowners, tenants, and occupiers. If they operate unlicensed guest houses, they will have to face criminal liability, but then there are exemptions. Can you explain to me those exemptions? Because I understand that some landowners may be on the mainland or overseas, and they are worried that without knowing it, they are criminally liable for certain acts. How can they provide information to explain or to tell people that they are actually innocent? First of all, about that category of guest houses, if the DMC doesn't allow guest houses to be operated in the building, there are about 280, and we are talking about over 2,000 rooms. In Hong Kong, the total number of guest house and hotel rooms exceeds 86,000, so they account only for 2.5%. The impact should not be great. And we expect that the 280 guest houses can find alternative location for continued operation. In other words, it will be lower than 2.5% of rooms that will be affected, or below 2,200 rooms. Secondly, the so-called innocent parties. After the law is changed, owners or tenants or occupiers of unlicensed guest houses will have to face criminal liability, but they also allow them statutory defense. And the defense is such that they can prove that they do not have control over the use of the premises, and so they will not be prosecuted. And specifically, that would mean that the landowner has rented out premises to a tenant, and the tenancy will state that this is only for private residential use and no commercial operation should take place. And after taking the deposit and rental, he has not visited the premises. So that goes to show that he has no control over the use of the premises. Thank you. Mr. Leung Chi-Chang, Chairman. I support amendments to the Hotel and Guest House Accommodation Ordinance, because the biggest problem now is that in the urban area there are unlicensed guest houses and risks are posed. I agree that we should amend the ordinance to tighten up the control. But I remember when the SHA was here last time to consult us, we mentioned home-style lodging and whether we can add this category of license. But I'm disappointed. I believe you are using the proposal of holiday flat license to also mean or include home-style lodging. It is not that this license will not be meaningful. We can use it for a certain purpose, but by home-style lodging, we mean lodging provided in old village houses with a pitched roof. In fact, they can be used for short-term accommodation for tourists. But the structure of these old village houses may not be the same as holiday flats. Can you take care of the villages in the NT where resources are available for tourists? I hope you can continue to look into this. Well, you don't have to call it a home-style lodging license, but they are different from holiday flats or holiday camps. You can allow more tourists to be accommodated if you can expand the category of licenses. SHA, home-style lodging. Many organizations have asked for that to be done. Thank you for the question. As Mr. Leung said, the law does not define home-style lodging, but in fact in NT there are many old village houses, and the landowners can make use of this ordinance to apply for a guest house license. We have been pragmatic and flexible in adopting a basic set of rules for structural and fire safety for village houses. If we do receive such an application, we'll send staff to inspect the premises to see what improvement measures should be taken so that relevant requirements are complied with. There are over 100 holiday flats or camps that have got licenses through this process. We will continue to tackle applications from village houses in this manner. And in overseas countries, even if it is a home-style lodging, it will also have to comply with certain structural and fire safety requirements. And those requirements are quite similar to what we stipulate in Hong Kong. So we can protect the people who live in such lodging. Next, Mr. Yu Si-wing, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chair. The industry welcomes the amendment exercise. It has been a headache for us that there are unlicensed guest houses. I think the proposals this time around are feasible, and the government will not have to do so much investigation work. On the issue of different licenses, I think it's appropriate. We should allow people to differentiate among the different kinds of lodging, so tourists will not be confused. And also the third-party risk insurance, we support that as well, since we also have to protect the life and limb of third parties. But I think there is a problem with what Mr. Kwok also mentioned, and that is, after the amendment exercise, if guest houses are in buildings where such operation is prohibited by the DMC, especially for those which have been operating for a long time, they will immediately be made illegal. The administration said they would help them renew the license. But, well, if they can relocate, they need not your help. But if you cannot help them find another location, then it's no good talking about it. So at least you should help some of them to transform their operation. 280 guest houses, and we are talking about the livelihood of maybe over 1,000 people, because the workers also have to support their families. I think you cannot be too light-hearted about this. Mr. Kwok also said he supports the new regulatory regime, but he is also concerned about the people who may not be able to operate the guest houses anymore. I hope you will also help these guest houses which have made a contribution to Hong Kong's tourism industry over the years. Number 2, the renewal arrangement. The government said this. You should consider the views of the people in the same building and also the response of the operator, and that has to be done by an independent panel. Well, the submission of views and the active consultation may be quite different, and it hinges upon the continued operation or otherwise of a guest house. If you do active consultation, even if I don't object, I would say, I don't want any trouble created, so I would say no. However, if you don't ask, the people might find it acceptable. Therefore, if I look at liquor licenses, it states that the LLB doesn't have to take an active role in consulting the people in the building whether the selling of liquor will breach any clauses in the DMC or other covenants. In other words, they will not actively consult people or make inquiries. The LLB would only react when there is a complaint. So I like you to be very cautious in processing applications or renewals. You know, even for liquor license, there will not be active consultation. Can the administration also state this clearly in the law? This is the second point. The third point, the manned counter issue. As you know, some guest houses are very small. I have used up my 4 minutes. Yes, you have. Please queue up again. Next member, Mr. Wu Chi-wai. I will have to be very strict with the timing. 4 more members would like to speak, and we may not have a second round because we have 3 items on the agenda. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, thank you. 2 points. Number 1, the proposed amendments would more or less improve the situation because we believe there is insufficient regulation. So I think we are going in the right direction. But as Mr. Yu Si-wing said, when you enforce the new law, there may be some guest house operators who may have to close their business. And how are you going to respond to that? Number two, the entire licensing scheme has been criticized because you stipulate that it can only be in a residential building. And also the DMC must not prohibit such businesses before you will allow them to operate.
Now, this is a profit-making in nature. This is a trade that's profit-making in nature. Now, and perhaps commercial buildings or non-residential buildings may also be available for them, so that would broaden their options. And certainly, on home style lodging, now the government places them under holiday flats. Now, we can see that in other countries, homestyle lodging may be used throughout the year for that purpose, but in other cases, the owner will leave his flat and go away for a few weeks, and then he can accommodate some tourists during that time. So these are experiences that we can refer to. Now, will the government consider carefully now this mode of regulation or restraint on guest houses maybe doesn't fully fit in with modern needs in our current experience? Now, how can we let such new modes of accommodation be able to come into being in Hong Kong? Now, first question, existing operators, will they be driven out of business after the amendment comes into effect? We understand that some operators will be affected. We will have ways to assist them. They will be allowed to renew their license once for 12 months, so that they can find a new location, and we will give them priority when they do find that location. Now, as for whether they can find suitable accommodation, our thinking is that in future on our website, we will disclose on our website the addresses of licensed guest houses, so that both members of the public and the existing operators know which are the buildings that can accommodate guest houses. And as for whether non-residential buildings can be used for guest houses, I'm afraid the answer is no. Under Hong Kong law, guest houses is equivalent to residential purpose. Next, Mr. Stephen Ho. The government has made proposals to amend the HAGAO. Now, you may be able to deal thereby with the 280 licensed guest houses which you want to abolish. Now, when will you come to this panel or to LegCo now? And also, the DAB is concerned about homestyle lodging. Mr. Leung Chi-cheung was probably disappointed with your reply just now. Now you will have this new bill have you considered the impact on adjusting our leisure, agriculture and fishery industry, etc.? Now, officials said that you will be strict on safety issues. As you know, when we go to the countryside, the space is more than in the city. So if you use the regulations for the urban area and apply them to the rural areas, that may not be appropriate. So perhaps there can be some enhancement in this regard. The Secretary? Now, I believe leisure, agriculture and fishery will not be affected. Well, it involves homestyle lodging. Now, the amendment bill will is expected to be tabled to LegCo in the middle of this year. How about homestyle lodging? Is it Mr. Kwok who will respond? Thank you. First, I'd like to clarify. Now, as mentioned earlier, the licensing for village houses takes into account the unique design and environment of village houses in new territories, and there is a special set of rules that are more lenient compared to the urban area. So the holiday flats will be able to get licenses, and likewise the amendments will not make things more difficult for such guest houses in village houses. How about law enforcement for unlicensed guest houses? That's very important. We have over 40 full-time staff responsible for law enforcement against these unlicensed guest houses. The law also gives us certain powers. That's why we propose to amend the legislation so that we can rely on circumstantial evidence to directly prosecute the owner or the tenant. Now, so that's much easier for us than in the current legislation. Now, also on gathering evidence, the existing legislation do not let us break into the accommodation. Now we can apply under the bill. We can apply to the court for search warrant to enter the flat. So, now, we want to increase the number of overnight visitors. How much impact will this have on that? Time is up, I'm afraid. Next, Mr. Chen Chi-chun. Thank you, Chairman. Now, striking a blow against unlicensed guest houses, I'm sure we all agree on that. We are more concerned about licensed guest houses, but who do not comply with the DMC. Now, these people have come to speak to me. Not all of them have a bad influence on the building. Some told me that the building has improved in the atmosphere and cleanliness because previously the flat was used for vice establishment. Now, these new measures strike a blow at everyone. If they are even if they are licensed, they will be driven off business after 1 year grace period. Now, I don't hear any measures to help them that would really be effective. Now, the 1 year grace period, that's helpful, but publicity on their behalf, that's not really helpful. Now, how about these guest houses that have had a good track record, but they do not comply with the DMC? Will you just leave them to fade out? Now, actually, they are well behaving. They do nothing wrong, except that they do not comply with the DMC. The security of the building has improved after they move in. And for the unlicensed guest houses, you may not be able to enforce the law strictly against them, so they are in a worse plight than the unlicensed guest houses. On the 1-year grace period for renewal, if they know that they will not be able to stay there long, they will not invest heavily, and so they may not be able to maintain the quality of their service. Who will respond? Mr. Chen? We understand that for the licensed operators who do not comply with the DMC, they will be affected. We have measures to assist them. We will take the initiative to serve notice on these buildings that the DMC doesn't allow guest houses, and if these guest houses are able to find a new location, we will give them priority when they apply. We will find ways to try to help these people who really want to operate guest houses. Now, Mr. Chen is also concerned about the maintenance of quality of service within 12 months. Now, we don't just renew the license, whatever happens. We will require that they maintain compliance with fire safety, etc. We will also conduct inspection, so we will ensure that quality is maintained within the 12 months. Now, even if the building is not against accommodation, but if the DMC doesn't allow it, then they will not be able to operate. Now, the public opinion from our consultation is very clear that the government should abolish guest houses in buildings where the DMC does not allow that, and so we will not license those. Now, including me, there are 3 more members who will speak for the first time. If there are no other first-time speakers, I will draw the line there. 3 other speakers are for the second round. I'm afraid that we can only allow women for the second round. Mr. Paul Chair, I'm not a member, but I'm glad that I'm able to speak. Now, where the DMC doesn't allow commercial activity or guest houses, that's one kind of restraint. And there's other restraint against non-residential users. Now, there are fewer cases of DMCs that prohibit guest houses, but more DMCs. There are more DMCs that do not permit non-residential use. Now, very often these uses are beauty centers or music instruction and so on. For these buildings, if the businesses are not posing a lot of nuisance, perhaps we can be more flexible. For instance, these guest houses, the other types of businesses such as tutoring of students, etc. These have been in the buildings for a long time, and they don't pose a lot of nuisance. So maybe we shouldn't be that rigid. That is, we shouldn't just rule out giving licenses to any type of businesses in buildings that do not permit non-residential use, because the businesses have been there a long time already. Now, if the DMC merely says that that non-residential use is not permitted and is not specifically against the guest houses and other types of business have been in the building a long time, then perhaps we can be more flexible towards those guest houses. And secondly, when you talk about circumstantial evidence, what type of circumstantial evidence? Now, on the DMC matter, our current proposal is that if the DMC states clearly that guest houses are not allowed, then we won't allow it. Secondly, the DMC says that no commercial use. Now, some guest houses are located in dual-purpose buildings, so they will be allowed. They are not allowed only in buildings where DMCs do not permit either guest houses or non-residential use. Now, we have to look at each case. Now, you take into account the history. We will mainly look at the DMC. We will seek legal opinion on the phrasing of the DMC. Now, on circumstantial evidence, we can give concrete examples. For instance, if we go and inspect and we find that the accommodation is clearly used for guest house, for instance, we find that it's some residential use, all the rooms are converted for guest house use, and there are towels, etc. I'm sure then that would be quite clear.
And also, if they have taken our advertisements, maybe on the internet, then we would regard this as sufficient circumstantial evidence that a certain flat has been used for unlicensed guest house operation. Ms. Anne Chang. Thank you, Chairman. We welcome the latest proposals for regulating guest houses. We welcome the different categories of licenses proposed. But while you do so, I hope you can exercise discretion for the sake of those people who might not know that there would be this change, and maybe just last month, someone has used $10 million to take over the operation of a guest house. And once you complete the exercise, it will be driven out. If in a building the DMC stipulates that there should not be any guest houses, or if the DMC is silent on this, then in principle, as long as the owner or tenant is not very much offended, then can we have a certain buffer? You will not drive them away immediately. Can you be a little flexible, because we have to consider the matter from other angles other than the legislation. I think there will be another committee to watch over the situation, but in the 3-year transitional period, I hope there will be a human touch and discretion, because after all, these people are in business. It's right for you to have fire safety requirements, but if other tenants are okay, can you not give them a chance? Mr. Chan. Thank you, Chairman. We are proposing that after the new law comes into effect, then we will do the regulation. But between now and the amendments are effective, there will be some time for LegCo to scrutinize the law. And then even after that, we will allow them to renew for once, and the renewal period will be for 12 months. So the whole period taken as a whole is not short at all, and we are going to mount a lot of publicity. Lastly, my turn. I support the amendments to the law because I think the public have been waiting long for this. I think this is a belated exercise, and many guest houses are in a difficult situation because of historical legacies. I understand you have taken on board certain views in that you have given them 12 months more to look for alternative locations. but I believe it is not easy for them to relocate. They can't do it in a business building, for example. And when it renews the license, it will also have to ask the views of the people in the same building. So it's not easy for them to relocate, in my view. After all, they have contributed to society, and they have been operating lawfully before they become illegal. So will you look into the actual situation of these guest houses and help them look for other locations so they can continue to operate? You talk about the grace period, but I'm afraid some of them will be driven out of business. I know it is a difficult situation because the public cannot accept their operation, which is not allowed by the DMC, but they have been operating lawfully and they have been contributing to Hong Kong. Apart from the grace period of 12 months, can you think of other ways to help them weather this very difficult time? Maybe you can come back later. If you cannot think of anything now, I know it's very difficult. I'm caught in the middle. I've met them. And I know the public have sounded their views very loud and clear. We know that we should support the exercise because the public have asked for DMCs to be complied with. But these people have been operating, they have contributed to society, and they have not been breaching the law so far. I think the 12-month period may not be sufficient. Chairman, I need to state 2 points. Number one, this is, after all, commercial operation. We can allow them a grace period. But if we are to make use of public resources to support commercial operations, we have to tread with care. Number two, they may have some complaints because they say we have licensed them, even if they have flouted the DMC, and yet we haven't paid regard to the DMC. However, when we gave them the license, we had told the operators in very clear terms that we give them the license, but it doesn't mean they can flout the DMC. So when cases go to the Lands Tribunal, we have seen cases where somebody in the building should say the DMC is breached. The Lands Tribunal will always say that they have to comply with the DMC, and the public and the landowners will say there has been case law and that guest houses have to comply with the DMC, and yet the government is not acting, they say. That is why we have to amend the law to say that everybody has first of all to comply with the DMC. As Mr. Paul Chair said, the DMC has to have express provisions about this. Failing that, we will act with a lot of care. Okay, I'm just asking you to think about it. They have written in, for example, saying that there is a case where over 80% of the units have been converted for different kinds of commercial operation. And if the OC doesn't object, can they stay there? I think we need more detailed investigation. I am just saying that where it is legal and reasonable, please try to think about the difficulties faced by the guest houses. Yes, we agree, we understand the difficulties, and we will very carefully think about the case law and the DMC provisions. There are 3 members or 4 in the second round, 1 minute each. Sin Chung Kai, Mr. Chan, you gave us a routine, standard civil service answer, but we were talking about the promotion of I&T. Can you not apply your mind to this issue? How can you find a balance between I&T and then guest house governance? In other words, you seek to protect the public interest, but at the same time you want to promote I&T. You have to think about this, Mr. Secretary. You are an accountability official. You are not a civil servant. C.Y. Leung is talking about I&T every day, and now there is something you can do, and yet you don't want to do it. You would just stick to your old ways, and we were talking about home-style lodging, and you say you're not considering it. This is our criticism. You don't need, or you don't just need an I&T bureau to promote I&T. Every bureau has to apply new thinking if we want to promote I&T. Any response? Okay, you note the members' view. Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. I asked my first question and the second question about issue and renewal of license and also the collection of views. Director, we already have a mechanism to do it. We call it a notification mechanism. In response to the public's worries and the nuisance that is caused to them, and we would notify the OCs of buildings when there is a new application, and this has been kicked in since April last year. We'll continue to do this. We will apply the same mode of operation when renewal applications are received. We will inform OCs and other land owners or small owners that there is a unit in your building applying for issue or renewal of a guest house license. This is the established way to do it. If they say they do not say they object, that would be deemed to be that they agree to it. Well, the detailed operation will be in the law. Mr. Paul Chairman, the DMC may sound like a solemn document. It is, after all, a private treaty. Of course, in the DMC, we have more parties. But theoretically, we can examine certain people orally or in written form, especially where it involves an old building. The DMC may say something and it may have been said 50 years ago, but if the situation has very much changed in the building and if over 80% of the small owners do not object or mind, then perhaps you can apply discretion when you issue or renew licenses. You may have to draw a line, but then I hope you will give yourself some room for maneuver and not drive out guest houses that are operated in a responsible and a disciplined manner. Okay, you know the view. In drafting the law, we will very carefully consider how we can do this in law. Okay, I think that's it for this item. I hope the Bureau will note members' views. My understanding is that members support the general direction of improvements. It's just that members have mentioned the guest houses that may be in difficulty and hope that you can help them. Okay, next item. Signature project scheme projects of the Central and Western District, the Islands District, and the North District. I will ask the administration to be invited into the room.
所有立法會議員呢都獲邀出席參與會議。由於呢個項目呢係涉及撥款嘅建議，
仲有2分鐘。Since this has a financial application, I have to remind members, according to Rule of Procedure 83A, that you have to declare interest. 83A stipulates that if there is direct or indirect pecuniary interest involved, members must not move any motion or any amendment to a motion or speak on the item unless you have declared the nature of that interest. So I will remind members, if you have direct or indirect pecuniary interest about the item in front of us, please declare the nature of that interest before you speak. The clerk has also prepared a background brief for your reference. Thank you very much for coming. You are from different districts. I will thank you for your attendance. There are meetings in different rooms, and I think members are listening in to your descriptions in different rooms. Mr. Secretary, please now introduce the paper. This is the 4th time we have come to talk about these SPC projects because every district has got $100 million for such projects. With the support of the HAB, the Kwai Ching project has already got funding approval from the FC in July last year, and the item has been kick-started in January. And for Wong Tai Sin, the improvement project to Wong Tai Sin Square and also the Sham Shui Po Shekip Mei Community Center, those have been supported by the PWSC on the 18th of March. We will go to the FC as soon as possible for funding support. The 18 districts proposed 27 projects. Because of the large number, we will group projects for which the advanced work will be completed more or less the same time, so we can consult members in groups, just like today. In a period to come, we will continue to adopt that mode of operation to consult members. With the support of district councils, district organizations, and also the public, the CNW district, Islands district, and the North district are going to introduce 5 projects to members. I will ask Mr. Yip of the Central and Western district to introduce the projects of their district now. Mr. Yip, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, I'm glad to brief you on the proposals by the Central and Western district. The harbourfront enhancement and revitalization at the Western Wholesale Food Market. Central and Western residents want all along to have a harbourfront promenade to serve the public. And the Western Wholesale Food Market is not open to the public generally, so it's difficult for the public to access this stretch of the harbourfront. However, the 4 piers nearby and this stretch of the harbourfront have been vacant for a while because of the reduction in marine traffic. So we hope that it can be used for leisure purpose. And the wholesalers have been in support of this. Now, the district council feels that this is a good opportunity to revitalize and beautify the harbourfront at this location so that the waterfront promenade and the wholesale market can be enjoyed by members of the public. Now, the HAD and the district council have sought public views all along, and we have worked through the DC Council members' offices, and the reception has been very positive. And we have twice consulted the relevant committee in the Harbourfront Commission, and they've given us their support. This is about 5,200 hectares. It's about $91 million, and the proposals are very practical, and the existing paving, the railings, new railings, improvements to the railing, to the paving, and soft landscaping, etc. And we have set aside $3 million for non-works purpose, so that there can be community participation and publicity activities. There will be weekend bazaars in cooperation with the different NGOs, so that the variety of activities will make our harbourfront more vibrant. Now, with the support of this panel and the Commission, we hope that the design new sign can be completed in late 2017, and works can start in 2015, so that the public can enjoy this facility at an early date. Next, representative from the Islands District, who will brief us on your project. Now, I am very glad that I can brief you on the two signature projects for the Islands District. First is the public library at Yongshiwan and the library cum heritage and cultural showroom at Lama Island, and then there's the improvement works at Silver Mine Bay Beach. In January 2013, the CE in his policy address announced the launching of the signature project scheme, and the district council has set up a task force on the island's signature projects. The islands cover Lantau, Peng Chau, Lama Island, and so on. So the task force has held many meetings. There have been detailed discussion, and we have selected out of the various proposals the Yongshiwan and Silver Mine Bay projects as our signature projects. And the Islands District Council has received broad support from the residents, Islands DC, and in 2013 and 14, November and December respectively, we have held meetings where we received support from a majority of the residents. Now, I will first brief you on the Yongshiwan project. Because of smaller population, there are less communal facilities at Lama. The library service is provided at a small library near the pier. It's only about 70 square meters, and its opening hours are only 23 hours per week. And the history of Lama Island can be traced to Neolithic and Bronze Ages. So the DC proposes to demolish the existing library and replace it with a 3-story building. The first and the second stories will be used for libraries, and there will be a historic showroom on the ground floor. And the Yongshiwan project is to make better use of the site. It's a superior site, and at the same time we will enhance the services of the library while providing a venue to let people find out more about the fishery industry and the cultural characteristics of Lama Island. It's the concept of reading a book on Lama by the sea, and we have we are cooperating with the Hong Kong Shuyan Library to design and prepare for the showroom. So we hope that the Lama residents will enjoy a better library, whereas members of the public can learn more about the culture and history of Lama Island at this venue. And I will now ask the Vice Chairman of the DC to brief us on the other project, that is the Silver Mine Bay project. Ms. Chow. Good afternoon. The other signature project proposed by the Islands District is to improve the Silver Mine Bay facilities. Now, Silver Mine Bay has been an important tourist destination for visitors to Lantau Island. But since the development of Tung Chung and Ngong Ping 360 there has been a sharp decrease in visitors to Mui Wo. Now, Mui Wo residents hope that there can be new vitality injected into Mui Wo. Silver Mine Bay has been the most well-known tourist district in Mui Wo. If it can be improved in its facilities, there will be increased attraction for visitors. The Silver Mine Bay Beach has become a gazetted beach in the 1960s, and but since then the facilities have become outdated. For instance, toilets. There are only very cubicles of very old design, and for the purpose of ventilation, behind the cubicles there is a wall with a big hole for ventilation purpose. So if someone goes by the toilet, if he stands on a bench, he can see everything that goes on inside, and he can reach inside with his hand. So this facility is not serving its purpose during the swimming season and during the dragon boat races and other events. We have every year a large-scale dragon boat race at Silver Mine Bay, and we also have a very well-known music festival, annual festival at Silver Mine Bay, and the toilet and other facilities are unable to accommodate. And the project will introduce a new design, and the will be a new barbecue pit and sitting out area. There will be a landmark viewing platform, and so it will meet the needs of leisure visitors, and the number of toilet cubicles, barbecue pits, etc. will increase a lot, and CEDD has launched a improvement works program in stages, and from the pier there's a route to the inner parts of Mui Wo, and but the works don't go as far as the Silver Mine Beach. So this program to make Silver Mine Bay an interesting village for visitors will be greatly enhanced by the proposed project. Now, I hope that members of this panel can support this signature project. Next project is by North District. Is it Mr. So? Now, I will brief you on the two signature projects of North District. These are to improve the trails and the provision and ancillary facilities at Wu Tip Shan and Wa Mei Shan at Fanling, and also to improve the facilities at Sha Tau Kok. Now, since the announcement of the project by the CE, there has been a lot of discussion instigated by the DCs. The funding project is to promote healthy lifestyle, ecological travel tours, and the Wu Tip Shan is near the Fanling railway station, and there will be a viewing platform, and at Wa Mei Shan there will be sitting out area, and ancillary facilities will be improved, like a pavilion, benches and signboards, etc. And members can refer to enclosure 4 of the document. Now, as for the Sha Tau Kok project, The works will span the Global Geopark and the Plover Cove Country Park, and the project will promote ecological tours, and it will also support the continual status of the Hong Kong Global Geopark of China, and this will revitalize the facilities, and we will also update and improve the viewing platform at Lai Chi Wall, and the trails and pedestrian footbridges and the sitting out areas will all be improved. And you can refer to the enclosure 5. And the North District Council will launch a series of publicity activities, and there will be a launching ceremony, eco tours, and so on. And it will work along with other NGOs. The District Council believes that the project will raise the quality of life of residents, and it will improve tourism prospects for North District.
As a matter of fact, the two projects have been the product of continued discussion in the community. They have been incubated for a long time. Before the SPS project is rolled out, we have already provided improvement to Wutip Shan trails, and also we have discussed how to improve facilities in Sha Tau Kok. The two projects are really the extension or product of previous work. The signature projects are a hard-earned opportunity for us to devote resources to the improvement projects that have been waited for a long time. We have invited people to donate to such projects before, and we have been able to collect $2.3 million. So you can see the kind of support and aspiration from people in North District for these two projects. I hope members will support these two projects, and if the FC will support the funding as well, we hope we can start the projects at the construction of which at the end of 2015 for completion in 2017. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, the Chairman and Vice Chairman of the 3 District Councils, for your introduction. There are 7 members who would like to ask questions on these 3 districts. I will read out your names: Lam Tai Fan, N Chang, Leung Chi Chang, Ip Kwok Him, the Deputy Chairman, and myself. I will propose one round only, 4 minutes, including a reply. How many minutes? 4 minutes. Mr. Lam Tai Fai. If I have 4 minutes, I would first of all make use of 20 seconds to thank Mr. Yam Kin Chung, the DO of North District, and also Mr. So Shai Chi, the Chairman of DC, who found the time to take me to Sha Tau Kok for a site visit of the boundary. I believe they had to leave early because they were preparing for papers for this meeting. But thank you very much for taking me to the boundary. But it is not because of the visit that I'm supporting your projects. So, Mr. Secretary, I'd like to ask that there will be extra recurrent funding on an annual basis that will be required. Who would foot the bill? If it is for the district councils, then if there is overspending, who will underwrite? Does it mean that you will have a commitment for underwriting such expenditure? Because I can see that there is an annual recurrent expenditure after the projects are completed. Secondly, I really have to praise the North District because they are using $1.023 million, but the 23 million will be collected from residents, and other districts are preparing a budget of almost 100 million. So if the North District can already get donation to the amount of 2.3 million, then perhaps you can also try to collect more money in case of overspending. But what about other projects? And also, I have seen that there are 6 other districts which have not let us see out their proposals. You say that it is expected that in the first quarter of 2016, you will consult the HA panel. Is that right? We will have to wait till next year. Have I got it wrong? And I have just got news that the elections for district councils will take place on the 22nd of November this year. I will certainly remember this day because that's my car plate number, 1122. Don't ask me why. That's because it's my birthday. So 2016 belongs to the next term of DC. You don't even know who will be returned and who will be the chairman, vice chairman. And members of the district councils may have different views. They can also comment on the projects proposed. Will projects be redesigned? And in other words, there may be variables. Secretary or the Director. Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your questions. The first one, recurrent expenditure. There are 2 ways to take forward the SPS projects. One, that the administration will cooperate with the district councils, just like these proposed in this paper, and the recurrent expenditure will be met by the administration. Secondly, there will be for the DCs and other district organizations who will act as sponsors or partners. It's just like the Shakib May Community Center that we consulted you on. The recurrent expenditure, well, you have explained that last time. Those are the 2 modes of operation. So is it that if they put in a big figure on recurrent expenditure, you will give them more money? Well, it is not that whatever they ask for will be given. We will follow a strict procedure to calculate the actual recurrent expenditure that will be required, and then we will try to secure allocation in the RAE. The other question is about the $100 million tag that has been put together or reserved for each district. But we would welcome donations from individuals or organizations, so there will be more money for the project. Apart from the North District, there are other districts which have been able to get community donation, like Yuen Long, Sha Tin, and Wan Chai. And other people will have to operate within the $100 million. But then we also have safeguards. In fact, the majority of projects are construction projects. And in accordance with established procedures, you may have to do feasibility studies and detailed design so that we will be more accurate in estimating the expenditure. You may have to be brief. And we will calculate on the money of the day prices. In other words, when we seek funding, we will also calculate the possibility of inflation. And 10% is always the contingency. What about the 2016 issue? I think you have to wait till the second round. Sorry. Mrs. Anne Chang. Thank you, Chairman. I don't know why Mr. Lam Tai Fai was the first one, because even if before he sat down, I already raised my hand. Perhaps I was too early. Anyway. Now we all know his birthday is the 22nd of November. We will have a busy day celebrating with you. Chairman, I can see that with regard to the harbourfront enhancement and revitalization at the Western Wholesale Food Market, I think that's a very good idea, but you are going to work on the 4 piers. You would develop it and landscape it so people have another place to go. I like to say that since the land is owned by the government, is that right? Can you not take the opportunity to take over the operating rights of the piers, since you are helping to improve it? You can do more. I can see that when I look at these piers, I'm reminded of the Fisherman's Wharf at Sydney, Australia. It looks quite similar. People operate snack stores on the coast. You have to do something to attract people. So after improving it, and if there are no people, does it mean that it will only be for the enjoyment of launches? So why don't you think about this also? Maybe I should not be in a position to comment since I'm not from the Central and Western, but I'm just mentioning it. Because after all, the place will be left idle during the day. Is it that you are going to put it to some use at night? Ms. Han Chang, have you asked your question? No. Please continue then. I'm trying to discuss the issue. No, I'm thinking maybe the C&W representatives can answer you. I think they are poised to answer me. Chairman or members, let me comment. When you talk about idling time, I think it's mainly in the morning because the activities don't take place in the morning. The wholesale market will make use of the area mainly in the evening and in the night. We can see that for most of the time, the place is quite quiet. That is why we think this is a good place to be turned into an open space. That's the main consideration. We like to use it for leisure. It will be something like a promenade, a waterfront promenade. You ask whether there can be other forms of development. And say we can have snack pavilions when we have events. This is exactly what we think of doing in the engineering aspect, that we can hold activities there later on. I just think that it is an excellent place, and I think that is an excellent idea as well. I think you stand to gain, Secretary, that you are giving them $100 million more because people have been racking their brains to provide something good for the districts. And the North District is, in a way, quite innocent in gathering donations from the community. The Yongxuan Library, as Ms. Chow said, you mentioned the toilets. In fact, the North District has mentioned Wu Tip Shan all the time. And when I look at the pictures, I'm sure things will be very much improved. Maybe every 2 years, Secretary, you can consider giving them $100 million because there is everything to gain. Mr. Leung Chi Chang. Well, I think I like the statement that district matters should be resolved at the district level. I think these projects are an eye-opener for me. I never thought that the districts could come up with such brilliant ideas. There is limited money, and I think that $100 million, well, it may be good enough for one project, but if there are 2 projects, people have to get donations. As you know, Yuen Long has been able to gather tens of millions of dollars. So I thought $100 million should be just enough for one project. But as you know, we see inflation, and as we go along, we may want to spend more money. And I believe other districts will have to gather donations as well. I believe these projects will become new tourism spots, like the Silvermine Beach, the beach project. Right now, the environment is not that good, but I think with the project being completed, urban dwellers may go there as well. I'd just like to ask a small question about the butterfly park. If there are many butterflies, and if you gather them in a park, would that have an impact on the ecology? Thank you for the question. Well, the butterfly hill, of course, there are many butterflies. And in fact, there is also a stream which provides a good source of water, and there are many butterflies in that area. We are going to plant vegetation that will attract more butterflies to the area. This is exactly within our design. And in the future, I'm sure there will be many, many butterflies in the area. In fact, the signage would carry the image of butterflies as well. Okay, have you finished, Mr. Leung? Next, Mr. Ip Kwok Him. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the 3 districts, CNW, Islands, and the North, for coming. I thank the DC Chairman and Vice Chairman for coming to explain to us their innovative ideas. As Mr. Leung Chi-Chang was saying, we should consider how we can allow district councils to put forward proposals for carrying out projects on the district level.
And I think this is most important. Now, a problem that may arise is to get people's views. Different opinions may emerge. Now, having looked at the projects from these 3 districts, say at Central and Western, there has been consensus reached. My question is, now I support all 3 projects, firstly, and I think the members here should respect the views of the district councils so that the works can be launched as quickly as possible. Because as Mr. Lam Tai Fai said, well, he remembered the date, 22nd of November. That's an important date for the district councils because that's the date of the new term. So time is short. Now, for LegCo members, our term is for 2 more years. We have 2 more years left in our term. Now, the last applications of the scheme will only come to us next year. So will that affect the implementation of the projects? Actually, for the 27 projects, 20 of those will have arrived at this panel. The proposal will have arrived at this panel by July this year. For the other 6, for the other 7, they are expected to come to this panel in the first quarter of next year. It's because we need to do some advanced work in respect of these 7 projects. For instance, the Sai Kung, the Kilchui Pier, now is within a geopark, so according to the rules, there has to be environmental impact assessment, and there's to be some works on the seabed, so that takes longer. For us, also at Kowloon City project, at the site, there are some heritage artifacts there. But in any case, we expect to come to this panel even for these projects early next year. Now, when the projects are being implemented, now if district councils have questions, how will they be followed up? Now, if the projects do not come back to the LegCo, how will the projects be monitored? I understand that at each DC there will be a task force or group that will monitor the progress of the projects? Is that the case? Now, there will certainly be a committee or subcommittee at the DCs who will monitor the works, and of course the works are done by government departments, and we will ensure that the contractors complete the projects in time. Mr. Mark Fong Kwok, concerning these 3 projects, I think they are all worthwhile and I support them. I'd like to find out a little bit more about the Silver Mine Bay project as introduced by Ms. Chow. Now, I've been to Mui Wo a few times in the past few years, and there are less people there, and the old feelings are no longer felt by me. Now, I agree very much that we should try to enhance the atmosphere there, and I'd like to know how many people attended the beach music festival in the past. Now, apart from the toilet problem, are there other constraints on the patronage? And also, are there schemes for large-scale events? For instance, water skiing or sand construction, modeling. Now, well, there are many uses related to beaches. Now, as for the Music Beach Festival, we suffer from good toilets and also a deficiency of ancillary facilities. So the project has the aim of providing more facilities nearby so that people can have more activities to enjoy while they are here. So, there can be construction of sandcastle, etc. And there's a hotel near the beach. And in other countries, they have cultural festivities, and we can have them here. And on certain days of the year, there are ethnic activities, celebrations, and these can be done at the beach too. Now, because of poor ancillary facilities, less and less of these activities are being conducted at Silver Mine Beach. Now, actually, LCSD has a beach volleyball site here. So cycling, swimming, and village bazaars, all these are activities available for the public. So we have set aside funds for district bodies to participate. Well, I think this is important because in the past few years, when I have friends from abroad, I take them to the outlying islands, and they tell me that it's the outlying islands that left them with the deepest impression. Now, on whether the facilities there are sufficient, I think we shouldn't leave out Silver Mine Bay when we talk about the islands. Next. Vice Chairman. Now, Mr. Lam Tai Fai mentioned the cost. Now, I think there are some good projects like the Lama Library, the Wu Tip Shan, Silver Mine Bay. These are all popular with tourists. Now, if the facilities are built, but the government doesn't give extra support, then gradually people will forget about them. So for these districts, if the districts propose certain publicity programs or projects, then the government should set aside funds, and that will have for those purposes, and that will help the tourism industry. Now, I live in Western, and I agree with what the member said. Now, if we merely have a waterfront promenade, people will not go there that often. People might go to the Poncha Road Park area. Now, but I think at the wholesale market there can be some kind of carnivals at weekends, so that young people can have their own stands or stalls, do something creative, sell food. Now, there can be the waterfront coffee shop style establishments, and if you charge low rents, I'm sure people would like to go there. And I don't know what the council might think. And for the Lemma project site, it's a good location. Very often we arrive at Lemma Island, we can't tell if it's Lemma or Cheung Chau. I propose that we build something like a landmark at the Lemma Island, so that people are left with get a strong impression. Ms. Chow, or is it Mr. Chen? Thank you, Madam Chair. We thank Mr. Yu for his opinions. Now, for the 4 piers, we have prepared some facilities. We have made preparations for some facilities. There can be stalls. There will be a stage, and our Architectural Services Department can install some stands there for some regular activities to be held there. And as for refreshment kiosks, if in food preparation is involved, the issue can be complex, because there is the issue of drainage of the wastewater. So we are leaving that aside, because in any case, $100 million is not that much. Right now, the food wholesale market is not open, so we have to have a railing and as a partition, and there would be a separate entrance. As for stalls at the wholesale market site, we will try to find ways that will not affect the normal business operations. Okay, I think every district has certain opportunities and certain constraints, so maybe not everything can be done. Next, Mr. Tan Ka Piu. I'm also a Islands District Council member. This is a bottoms-up effort, so proposals have been originated from the lowest level, from the level of the public, and so it's very instructive. The process is more important than the results, and the council members may complain that the process is slow. Now, Kwai Ching district is fortunate in that the project is about service and not it doesn't involve construction. perhaps the Secretary can consider providing more resources and simplifying the procedures so that district council members of the current term can see their projects becoming functional within their own term. So I hope that can be considered. And also about my own islands district. Now the Yongxuwan project is possible because the government has given up its commitment to local residents for a communal facility. So hopefully community needs can be met and there can be an innovative design. So after a district comes up with a proposal, I hope the government can provide resources so that the project becomes sustainable. And on Mui Wo, why Silver Mine Bay? Now, there has been a lot of economic development in Lantau, but Silver Mine Bay seems to be the exception. The businesses don't make a lot of money there, and people don't seem to be able to find jobs there. So whether it's the district officer or the district councils, perhaps they can try to find new ideas. And now on whether the progress has been too slow overall. Now we are paying attention to that. Now I'm a district council member and also a LegCo member, and many DC members have been very creative and hardworking. $100 million is a small sum, but the results have been encouraging. Some have partnered with NGOs, some involve services, not just construction. I agree with Mr. Tan Ka Pil. If there's going to be a review, please launch it earlier, because overall it's not very satisfactory. Now, the new DC members will soon be elected. Now, you should let these members become involved right from the beginning of their term so that they can see the projects come to fruition. Now, you are only now starting to come LegCo for funding. So by the end of the next term of the district council, not a lot of the projects can be completed. So when you, I think you should provide reasonable funds to each term of district council. Also,
就話唔得嘅，一定唔得。
I put forward a proposal, but then the district officer said it's not possible because I thought that the money could be used for services. And now you see this is being done in Kwai Chung, and in fact the service has started. Now I can see that the Bureau has accepted the views of district councillors. So I would ask you for flexibility so there can be more innovation to serve more people. Another question that I have is about future management. The Secretary said that there will be a budget to cover the recurrent expenditure. But would it be for the HA or other departments to manage the projects, or would the district councils be able to propose? What is your policy? Like the CNW promenade, would it be for LCSD or HAD to manage the projects? Do you have a uniform policy? We will hand it over to the LCSD for maintenance. What about the Bureau? it depends on the nature of the project and what facility it is, and then we will decide which department will take care of it. Like the C&W facility, it is for leisure, so it will be for the LCSD. Okay? After the projects are completed, it means you will hand it over to the appropriate departments. I think that is right, or else it will make life difficult for staff of the HAD. Secretary, when will you stock take and then review the effectiveness of these projects? I know it is an embarrassing question because some districts are still to put forward projects, but then the elections are just round the corner. Well, we are trying to launch the projects of all 18 districts. But as you said, on the 22nd of November, which is someone's birthday, we will have the election to return a new term of the district councils. And Chairman, you said we might want to advance the projects. But of course, I haven't done any systematic conclusion, but the 18 districts generally welcome these projects. In other words, they welcome the delegation of powers for district administration. Therefore, we think this is a right step that we have taken. And after the new term of DC is returned, maybe we can make proposals for service-related projects to DCs at an early stage. Mr. Lam Tai-Fai, just 1 minute. We have overrun. Okay, 2 minutes. You will be the last speaker. Yes, Chairman. I won't say too much about the projects proposed because the DOs and the councillors should know what will be best for the districts concerned. I'm sure they will be people-based when they make proposals. And I'm not worried about the effectiveness because the residents and the electors will certainly monitor the projects. Certainly there should be a review, but then it's just a procedure. I'd like to go back to my first question. Now the political atmosphere is hugely uncertain. We have the constitutional reform package. We have filibustering and uncooperative campaigns. And I hope officials should get prepared. You should not be too calm about this because you have to come to LegCo for funding approval. There will be traffic jam. People might not be able to come into the building, and so approval of funding may take a long time. Therefore, you should put the funding request as early as possible to LegCo. And you cannot predict the results of the election. You may think that the pro-establishment camp will win the election, but then you don't know. You don't know who will be returned. And then if in the end the projects are overthrown by the new term of members, then what about the public who have been told there will be a project and who are waiting for the project to be completed? In the end, all of us will have to be accountable to electors. If you say you have to wait till the first quarter of 2016, why don't you try to advance it a little so it can be done within 2015? In fact, I'm worrying on your behalf. I'm just asking you to tell the districts to quicken the procedures so that you can come to LegCo as soon as possible. I am right on the dot, Chairman. Okay. I think the administration has looked at your views, and I thank the entire team for attending the meeting today. And in the end, I have to consult members. Would anyone object to submitting these projects from the 3 projects to the PWSC and FC for approval? No objection. Okay. Your time at this meeting is well spent, the administration and DC team. I think the panel will not usually object, but then please work harder when you go to the FC. That's it for this item. Thank you very much for coming to the meeting. Next, item 6, review on the Chinese Temples Ordinance. I'd like to invite the administration team to come into the room.
The clerk
has prepared a background brief, and it has been issued to members. The background brief paper is in CB bracket 2, 1045 bracket 08. I think the district councils have been very happy because they have mastered the first hurdle. Okay, let's carry on with the paper. Is it that the secretary will walk us through the paper? If you are ready, please start. Chairman, the Chinese Temples Ordinance was enacted in 1928. Some of the provisions are already outdated in the present-day context. The main purpose of the review is that on the major premise of respecting religious freedom, we would do away with the outdated provisions, and we will also seek to protect the public interest, and also we would like to continue with the promotion of traditional culture. The basic law stipulates that people in Hong Kong have freedom of religion, and we don't think we need to target certain religions and take particularly harsh regulatory measures. In proposing to remove certain provisions in the ordinance, we are aware of the public's aspirations, and we'd like to propose 2 new measures. Number 1, that we would use a voluntary registration scheme to take the place of mandatory registration. Voluntary registration will encourage temples to provide the necessary information, say, for example, the use of donations collected, and that there should be public inspection, and therefore transparency and the public's confidence can be maintained. And 2, that the SHA should have the power, where necessary, to be a party to necessary litigation in order to protect the public interest. There are already other pieces of legislation to tackle fraud, deception, and abuse of funds, and the relative environment and safety risks. There are already remedies for such. And these provisions and laws also apply to Chinese temples and other religious bodies. The Chinese Temple Committee will connect with other religious bodies to talk about the advantage of a voluntary registration scheme and encourage temples to take part and accept it, and also improve management of temples. We also like to propose that the CTC should become a body corporate, and so that the funds that are managed by the CTC now should be amalgamated. In other words, the Chinese Temples Fund and the General Chinese Charities Fund should be amalgamated to a single Chinese Temples Charities Fund, so that it will be able to support all charities or charitable organized activities in Hong Kong. We hope that will allow the CTC to give more play to its function for the public interest and also promote Chinese traditions. I hope members will support the amendments. Thank you. 2 members would like to speak on the topic. They are Kenneth Chan and Tanka Pugh. 4 minutes each. Mr. Kenneth Chan, thank you. I am worried that 4 minutes will not be enough. I hope you will give me enough time. Some deputations have put forward a request. In fact, this is going to be an overhaul of the 1928 ordinance. I'd like to know whether we can conduct a hearing, because this is part of the public consultation exercise. We have got a consultation paper anyway. So, Chairman, please try to see whether within the consultation period we can hold a public hearing. Secondly, Ms. Tanya Chan, my predecessor of the Civic Party, and also myself are very concerned about the results of this review exercise. Please pardon me for saying this. There would be temples which should be regulated by the CTO have involved themselves in profit-making business, in providing niches for people. We have made an inquiry with the secretary, but in the end, you are not tightening up the control. Rather, you are giving up control. When you say voluntary registration, it means nobody should register. And you say if it is necessary, you can intervene, but then experience tells me that you don't want to or don't know how to intervene. Now that we still have the ordinance, you would have a basic legal responsibility, but then it seems you don't even want to do it. Therefore, the results of this review, to me, are quite unacceptable. I don't know whether you have any recollection of the Yinhing Temple. Those should be regulated by the ordinance. They are Chinese temples, right? When they promote the sale of illegal niches to the worshippers, you just sit with your arms folded. And what is more ridiculous is that you say there are other pieces of legislation doing the regulation, so you don't have to do anything. I think you are shaking your responsibility. You are guilty of negligence. You don't even want to know how they collect donations and whether they are selling niches illegally and how they use the funds collected from the sales. And maybe there are illegal activities. And now you're telling us that you're not going to do anything about this. I would have to tell the Secretary that we have grave reservations about this proposed direction. This has nothing to do with freedom of religion. If you say when we talk about freedom of religion, we don't want to regulate anything, then maybe with members we can set up a blessing temple or temple for selling tonic food, etc., whatever. And I don't even have to register, and if I break the law, I will just abscond, and then you cannot even intervene in any way. So I'm very worried about your concentration on so-called freedom of religion, but not what you have to monitor and regulate activities, because people can practice deception in the name of religion. And what you are doing amounts to abolishing the ordinance altogether. Do you agree? Secretary, Chairman, I would kickstart and then the PS can supplement.
I don't agree with Mr. Chen's views. Now, this existing legislation of 1928 is not stated to be regulating Columbarium. Now, Mr. Chen knows that the LegCo is scrutinizing a bill that regulates Columbarium. Now, if the CTO is to be used to regulate Columbarium, I think it's not appropriate because there are two different matters. Now, there is already legislation regulating Columbarium. Now, Mr. Chen says that some Chinese temples are engaging in illegal activity. If that is substantiated, the government will deal sternly with that. Next, Tan Ka Piu. You can speak for a second round. We have time. Now, for the opening remarks of the Secretary on religious freedom or equality among religions, I think that's acceptable. It is a tradition that we have temples. Do we allow them to operate freely? I think so, because this is a religious matter. Now, Mr. Wong Kok Heng and Alice Mack are of our FTU are involved in the work on Columbarium, but these are two different policies. Now, you mentioned over 600 temples in Hong Kong. Now, perhaps the land is owned or occupied differently. In some cases, the sites are already purchased, or in other cases, maybe they lease the land, from the government for shorter terms. Are the sites all owned by the temples? Now we are talking about the registration system. That has nothing to do directly with the ownership of the land. Now, the objective of the legislation is to prevent and regulate against improper activities of the temples, especially when funds are obtained in some way from the public. Now, if there's an operation in the form of a temple, and if a donation is received from the public, that will be covered by the registration system to be implemented under the bill. Now, the Secretary also said that the bill also proposes to assist to provide for maintenance of the temple and so on. Now, this has nothing to do directly with ownership. Now, the land may belong to the body corporate. Now, that has to do with management, but that has nothing to do directly with registration. Now, I know I know some persons of Pakistan origin. Now, they have to find a location to teach their children Quran, and they have to raise funds. Now, how do you deal with that? Can you offer us some comparison? Now, the CTO only deals with Chinese temples, but it doesn't deal with Islam. Well, even in the case of other religions, some members of the religion can band together and try to find a location for their activities. There's a lot of history behind the CTO that is difficult to get into right now. Before 1997, there's a different mode of handling. Now, Vice Chairman, now Chinese people like to make donations. In order that the money donated is safely handled, we need regulations. Now, the Secretary talked about spirit of rule of law and complaint mechanisms. So the ordinance is amended to be a little more relaxed. Now, in recent years, Chinese temples receive donations and spend money. Do you have figures on those activities? Figures on the quantities? And are there problems? Now, if there's a lot of money, then there might be problems. And also, why, if there's little donation, or why? Now, registration involves regulation, but you can't regulate those who don't register. Now, how do members of the public identify or find out which temples are registered? Now, how do you let the public know this temple is registered so I can donate to it, but another is unsafe because it's not regulated? Now, if you allow temples not to register, then some organizations might set up different branches, some of which are not registered, and they might collect donations that are outside the scope of the law. Is it Ms. Wong or Mr. Wong who is to answer? Let me answer about the complaint figures. Now, according to the records of the CTC from 2012 to March 2015, there have been about 230 odd cases of complaints, and these involve temples that are managed by the CTC, but as for those not managed by CTC, we don't have the numbers. So if something gets out of hand, how do you get the data? Let me supplement. Now, Mr. Wong was talking about the situation when we don't have the new legislation. Now, the complaints are mostly about practical matters such as selling of windmills and paper windmills and so on. Now, in the future, we will ask them for more data about the activities. Perhaps you can let us have a table so that we can see more clearly. Now, the member was right. When we introduced the voluntary registration scheme, we want the public to be able to find out about the temples using the information on our website. Now, if a temple is shown among the registered temples on our website, then the public would know, and we have regular inspections of these temples. We are not talking about complaints concerning Columbarium. Next, Chen Chi-chun. Thank you, Chairman. Now, looking at the document, if the government truly wants to introduce the voluntary registration scheme, I think it's trying to give up control of the temples. Voluntary registration means you don't have to register. What incentive will you offer? You say there is a queue mark effect. Now, whether a temple is popular, it depends on marketing, about the effectiveness of worship activities. Now, there may be problems such as absconding with money, some of the money, or some of the services offered not being fulfilled. Now, where do people complain? Do they complain at the Consumer Council or what? Also, back then, there were pseudo-religious organizations, so the ordinance was introduced, enacted. So we don't have such problems now, or are there other legislation which prevent the occurrences of such events? So the spirit of the legislation has changed. Now it has become voluntary. Now, if the government says there's a fine of $1,000, etc. Now, do you have the figures? Have you referred to the experiences of Chinese temples in Taiwan or Malaysia and so on? And recently there have been some scandalous events, so the government's concern have paid a lot of activity to the donations, etc. But the administration here is going in the opposite direction. Now, if you like to register, you give us the data. If you don't register, then it has nothing to do with me. Is that the case? The Secretary? No. Deputy Secretary. Now, the document highlights a point. Now, this ordinance was enacted in the early 20th century, and society has changed. So the mode of regulation in that ordinance is not in accordance with the actual situation these days. And in the past decades, the public have become much more informed about rule of law and pseudo-religious organizations. And also legislation has improved across the board. Now, members may be concerned about deception or improper use of land, breaching planning purposes. Now, all these are covered by the relevant legislation. As for the requirement for registration, this is because some of the old provisions are difficult to enforce and may easily be challenged. So, as the Secretary said, we want to increase the transparency, and in major events, the Secretary can participate in the legal procedures. Mr. Yip Kok Him. Now, this is a long-standing ordinance. It's been in existence since 1928, so we need to review it. The document has talked about amendments in 4 respects. Now, I'm not very familiar with the operations of temples. Now, what is the core problem that you want to resolve? Is it the voluntary registration scheme that's most important? And are you saying that the CTC should not try to control all the funds, etc., of the temples? And you say that the CDC, the temples need to be body corporates. So that powers, etc., functions are defined, and also the CTC will be merged. CTF will be merged with the GCCF to make better use of resources, so which of those points do you think are the of paramount importance to address our current problems?
Thank you for the question. This time around, we are conducting a review and proposing amendments, mainly because the CTO has been with us for over 90 years, and some provisions are outdated. We believe the enforcement of those provisions may be the subject of serious legal challenge. Under the Basic Law, there is the guarantee of freedom of religion, and the Basic Law in Article 141 states that religious organizations should be able to dispose and inherit their own funds. And here in the CTO, all the funds of Chinese temples should be controlled by the CTC, and also within a committee that is appointed by the Secretary for the Home Affairs. We believe these provisions are definitely outdated and not enforceable. That is why we have to do this review exercise. At the same time, we are aware of the public interest that needs to be protected. That is why we are proposing these proposals for amendments. But after the amendment, as members have been saying, as you said, you cannot mandate the registration, and also religious bodies should have autonomy. But if you turn it into a voluntary registration, where is the incentive for people to register? And therefore, you will not be able to regulate them. Even if you have, by way of voluntary registration, are you going to create another problem? We like to propose a high level of criteria so that temples would be willing to register, and then the public will be able to see how the temples manage and use the donated funds. We believe this will add to the public's confidence. Now it's my turn, the first round. I'd like to continue with the question asked by Mr. Tenka Pugh. The CTO is old and needs to be reviewed. Yes, we agree there is the need to do so. But if we look at the matter from the angle of regulation, I'd like to know what you have to say, because donations are not only accepted by Chinese temples. Even if Chinese temples operate in a special way, Protestants and Catholics and even Muslims, they collect donations as well. What is the basis of regulation in our legal system? If we only look at CTO, I don't think it's very fair. Can I ask you whether you look at other religions before you did this exercise? Certainly, there is a historical background to the CTO. We are tackling a historical legacy. In older times, Chinese temples might be influential, and therefore some people might put forward themselves as operators of Chinese temples, but actually practice deception. And I have to point out something. Even under the present ordinance, we are talking about registration of temples, not religions. And there is a definition as to what a temple should be, and the temple should be registered. We are not talking about religious gatherings or religious activities. We do not require those to be registered. We only require Chinese temples to be registered. As to why the temples are only Chinese temples, I think we have a historical factor to this. We'd like to now update the CTO. We'd like to put in a voluntary registration system so it makes it more transparent and makes management more effective. With that done, the public can monitor the temples, and they know which organizations can be trusted, especially when they want to donate to these organizations. Once we accumulate some experience, and if society then says we should take another step forward, then we might be able to use this as an example for the regulation of other religious premises. But we are only talking about Chinese temples this time around. Then I think we are very backward. Religious donations date back a long time in Hong Kong, and Chinese temples are just one part of it. Some religious bodies do not have a permanent address. They will just gather people at a place and they can collect donations, and there is no regulation whatsoever. We may say that CTO is outdated, but on the other hand, some other religious bodies are not regulated at all. Therefore, you don't even have complaint figures. Is that right? I'm not saying that other religious premises or religious activities do not have to comply with the law. We have laws regulating environment safety and fraud or deception. But talking about religions, we don't require them to be registered. Second round. And also, first round, we still have Paul Chair. Thank you. I'm not a member, but thank you for giving me the floor. I'm quite concerned about this. I believe the direction proposed is quite new. We always talk about regulation, but this time around you are relaxing regulation. You mentioned Article 141 of the Basic Law, and I am happy to see that we have been quite fortunate until now that we have not had any serious litigation cases. As you said, Chairman, I think in a way this is quite discriminatory, and the historical background is quite discriminatory. Why are we only regulating Chinese temples, not foreign temples? Unless you tell me there are many complaints in the community. Otherwise, I think we should deregulate. Like political parties now, we do not regulate them, but we have a serious problem of donations. On the other hand, maybe it's the time to tighten up control as well. But it's a joke because I don't usually agree with legislating because it will put a control on people and also it will incur expenditure. But I'd like to seek some understanding into the exercise. Is it that you are going to overthrow the original registration system, or are you going to open it up so that temples can even choose to deregister? In which direction are you going? If the voluntary registration system, after consultation, is supported, we will set up a voluntary registration system, which will be still managed by the CTC. There will be a clear platform, and information to be submitted will be detailed, and the nature of information to be supplied will be detailed, and also there will be guidelines regulating the first submission of information and whether information has to be updated regularly. The CTC will also be able to random check and verify the information submitted. So there will not be any more mandatory registration. If they are already registered today, given that there will be a voluntary registration, they can choose to migrate to the voluntary registration system. But they will have to go through the same procedures as a new applicant. The CTC will make use of their platform and their experience about temples to publish the temples so the public can track these temples, their registration material, and also how they use the funds. Well, usually the administration will not do something for nothing. So what was the locomotive driving the present exercise? Is it because of complaints received? Well, we have received views from people practicing Buddhism, Taoism, and other religions. They said that they have been treated unfairly. 2 members for the second round. Any more members who would like to speak? 4 minutes each. Mr. Kenneth Chan. Thank you, Chair. We are given very little time to talk about a comparatively complex issue and which dates back a long time. I think this may not be very fair to all parties, including the Secretary. So I'd like to say we should be given more time at the panel to listen to all parties, especially those people who practice Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism. Maybe the Secretary has not come to grips with my problem. I understand niches should not be tackled by the CTO. We still have no laws regulating niches. We have land, planning, fire services, etc. But we could not do anything with the niches. There are many illegal Columbarium that are operating. And they are operating in the name of registered Chinese temples. So my first question is, are you aware of the situation of Qingwen Kun and other temples? They are related. Of course, the followers or descendants may ask you to do something, but in the name of the freedom of religion, you say you can't do anything. But indeed, they are operating with that veneer. And officials said that we should all learn, we should deregulate, and then we will all learn about the new situation and accumulate the experience, and so the public can do the monitoring. But I think this is a political economic issue. You will say the market can operate, and then the public can see how the market gets on with the situation. But I don't understand why you want to relax the control at one go. You actually also propose to delete Section 4. What does it say? It says all Chinese temples must be situated in stand-alone buildings, which is not used for other purposes. But you cross this out. In other words, this will not be required, and they may be upstairs, and we are talking about upstairs bars or upstairs temples. I definitely respect religions. I understand there are different religions in Hong Kong. That is not a problem at all. What I'm worried about is that through this amendment, you may be creating situations that are not desirable. In the past, we would know what a temple is, but you also do away with the definition, and you talk about voluntary registration so they do not have to pay any heed, and you say the SHA should be a party to any litigation. But Secretary, please do not mind what I'm going to say. I know you don't agree with me, but I hope you will stand in our shoes, and people who complain to us saying that the SHA, you don't have any empathy or sense of responsibility.
Because this is a power given to you and you are giving it up, and situation can go out of control in the future. So how do you convince the public for whom I'm speaking on behalf? Now, you are washing your hands of this, and so those who engage in deceit can continue in the activity. Now, if there are cases of deceit, I believe Hong Kong is still a society under the rule of law, and we will always maintain the rule of law. Now, as for which laws will be used to deal with an illegal activity, it must be a targeted law, and a different law would not be appropriate just because there is a crime and you just take any law to apply to it. Now, Mr. Chen voiced his concern that there might be Chinese temples who might operate upstairs. Now, religious worship at upstairs venues is a phenomenon found in Hong Kong and allowed by law. And we can't just say because it's Chinese temple, it cannot be established and be held at an upstairs venue. We have to be equal in our treatment of different religions. The Secretary is still using religious freedom as a defense. Now, I am saying that when you relax the regulation under this bill, then you make it easier for activities that try to make a fast buck using improper means. And the government is not fulfilling its responsibility. Now, precisely because the matters are not properly handled by the government that we have so many complaints. Now, people question whether whether the government has looked at the accounts of the registered temples. Now, it's not yet at the stage where people want to make a report to the police, but they do question whether the government is monitoring the accounts, etc. I don't believe the public will accept your reply. Now, what I can say is, where there is illicit activity in Hong Kong, which is a society under the rule of law, the government will deal with it according to law. Now, Mr. Chen referred to activities to make a fast buck. Just last Saturday, we had a meeting of the Anti-Crime Committee, and there's an item of the agenda that is about deceitful activities, and the government under spearheaded by the police is dealing with that. Now, Vice Chairman, I think we need to protect the elderly. When we talk about temples, we know that the elderly have been making donations to temples over the years. They don't know whether the temples are registered or not. Now, the money may be improperly spent and they are in the dark. So you say you don't regulate them if they don't register. I'm concerned that those unregistered operators will feel even more free to do whatever they want. They will be even more encouraged to use different means of deception or persuasion so that people donate to them. I think clarity is required. Registration is not important per se. Now, I'm not looking down on the elderly, but most of them don't know how to go on the internet. Now, there must be a clear marking or some means of identification of the temples that are registered. Maybe you can have a sign or something. I don't quite accept the internet method. Now, on penalties, if you use existing penalties, these people feel that they are not really threatened because they haven't breached the law. Now, you should add something to deter them, because the penalties have not increased and registration is voluntary. So these temples might be encouraged to spend the money even more improperly than before. So how do you identify them? How do you increase the penalties? So if you offer such protection, then people will know that you keeping a stern eye on the operators. Mr. You mentioned having a sign. Now we can consider that those registered as a Chinese temple might get a sign like for guest houses that are registered. Now, as for penalties, in what respects? If it's an illegal activity, then certainly the law enforcement agencies will enforce the law and penalties will be levied by the court after trial. But we can't just say we will fine them or punish them just because they don't register. We can't do that. We have to pay heed to religious freedom. maybe you can get your legal advisor to take a second look. Now, if the Chinese temples do not register under the new regime, will there be a deterrent or some incentive for them to register? So I think we have come to the end of this item of agenda. So after your public consultation, Mr. Secretary, please offer a report to the panel, and we can then further discuss if necessary. There will be 2 more months, and the agenda have been determined already, so we can wait for the Secretary's report. Of course, alternatively, we can have a public hearing within the next 2 months. Now, the Secretary, can you tell me if in the course of your consultation you will have hearings for the public to participate? Now, all the information on the public consultation will be open, will be announced to the public. They can write to us, they can phone us. Now, in the coming 2 months, we expect quite a number of temples or stakeholders to find out about our efforts, either from the government or from the CTC. So the 2 months would be for them to give us our preliminary views, and then we can have a report for the panel to consider. Now, this is LegCo. The LegCo doesn't mean that if government does something, then we don't have to do anything. Now, I think the Secretary will remember that as in the case of obstruction of public places, I hope the government doesn't just say, okay, the 2 months consultation period is over, so your views will not be accepted. So I think let's be clear about the procedure. I think it's better that the public hearing can be conducted during the consultation period, and so that there's an opportunity for the officials to give a clear explanation. So I think the legislative authority will do what it should. Now, you only expect people to write to you or phone you. You don't have any other channel to gather people's views. We have a specific website for people to provide input electronically. They can also fax us, write us, or phone us. And for the stakeholders, we will have meetings to brief them, and we will listen to them directly during the meetings. But for the public, we use the popular media, such as email, phone-in, etc. Do we have a slot within the next 2 months? Secretariat, we can. It's up to the panel to decide. We will try to make an arrangement for the next 2 months. Now, this people may not understand the details if it's merely through the internet. We will certainly make contact with the stakeholders. Such contact has already begun. We are hearing from them. The CTC has also discussed with many stakeholders. The panel can decide whether to have a public hearing. So will the Secretariat go ahead and make the arrangement? AOB, if none, the meeting is closed. Thank you.